You have seen the image before. A grainy black and white photograph, a man in a bulky suit, a flag that does not move, footprints pressed into powder that has not felt wind in billions of years. It feels distant, historical, almost unreal. But for a moment, bring it closer. Imagine stepping outside your home tonight, the air cool against your skin, the ground solid under your feet. Every step you take disappears by morning, washed away by wind, footsteps, time. Now imagine a place where your footprints never fade. That place is the moon. More specifically, the exact spot where Apollo 11 moon landing touched down, where Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked for just a few hours, and then left. They left quietly, quickly, carefully, and nothing has touched that place since. Not rain, not wind, not life. For 56 years, it has remained almost exactly as they left it. Think about that. On Earth, nothing lasts. Paint peels, buildings crumble, even mountains erode grain by grain. Time is always moving, always reshaping everything you know. But on the moon, time barely touches the surface. Because the moon has no atmosphere, no weather, no flowing water, no rust, no sound. Just silence, dust, and sunlight that burns for 2 weeks straight, followed by darkness just as long. So when humans landed there in 1969, they didn't just visit. They made marks in a world that does not forget. Those footprints are still there. The ladder they climbed down is still there. The camera they left behind, still pointing at nothing. Even the flag is still standing. Though after decades of extreme heat and cold, it may be bleached nearly white, its colors stripped away by relentless sunlight. Everything remains, frozen, untouched. You might imagine that the site looks abandoned, like a ruin, but that's not quite right. Ruins decay. They collapse. They tell a story of time passing. The Apollo 11 landing site does not decay. It simply exists, as if the astronauts just stepped away and never came back. High above, orbiting spacecraft have taken images of the site. From hundreds of kilometers away, they can still see the descent stage of the lunar module, a small object casting a thin shadow in the endless gray. Even the paths the astronauts walked, lines in the dust, are visible, not because they are deep, but because nothing has erased them. Imagine drawing a line in sand and knowing it will still be there in 1,000,000 years. This is what the moon does. It preserves moments. It holds history, not as memory, but as physical reality. You are not just looking at the past when you see that site. You are looking at something that still exists, exactly as it was, right now. At this very moment, while you sit here on Earth, breathing air and feeling gravity hold you down, those footprints are still there, silent, unchanging, waiting. And the strangest part is not that they remain, it's how small they are. Because once you begin to pull back, once you start to see where that tiny landing site sits in the vastness of space, everything changes, and the moon stops feeling big. Stand again on that landing site. Picture it clearly. A flat stretch of gray dust, fine as powder, the remains of billions of years of impacts, tiny meteorites grinding rock into something softer than sand. The lunar module's descent stage sits there, about the size of a small car, angular, fragile-looking, gold foil shimmering faintly in sunlight. Nearby, the footprints, each one about the size of a boot, pressed a few centimeters deep. That's it. That is the entire human presence from the first moon landing. Now step back. Not physically, mentally. Zoom out just a little. The landing site sits in a region called the Sea of Tranquility. Despite the name, it is not a sea. It is a vast plain formed by ancient volcanic activity. Hardened lava stretching for hundreds of kilometers. Hundreds. The astronauts explored a tiny fraction of it. If you placed that landing site inside a large city on Earth, it would be smaller than a single neighborhood. And yet, for a long time, this was the farthest any human had ever traveled. Now pull back further. The moon itself is about 3,474 kilometers in diameter. That sounds large, and it is, until you compare it. Earth is almost 4 times wider. If Earth were a basketball, the moon would be about the size of a tennis ball. Small, but still close. Very close. On average, the moon is about 384,400 kilometers away from Earth. That number is hard to feel. So try this instead. If you could drive a car straight to the moon at highway speed, say 100 kilometers per hour, it would take you over 160 days to get there, driving non-stop. No brakes, just roads stretching endlessly forward. And when the Apollo astronauts went, they didn't take months. They took about 3 days. 3 days to cross a distance that would take you nearly half a year to drive. And that's how fast they had to move just to reach our nearest neighbor. And still, in cosmic terms, that distance is nothing. Here's something that feels almost impossible. You could fit all the planets of our solar system: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, in the space between Earth and the moon, with room to spare. That gap you see in the night sky, it's enormous. And yet, it is still tiny compared to what comes next. Now pull back again. The moon orbits Earth. Earth orbits the sun. The distance from Earth to the sun is about 150 million kilometers. If the Earth were a coin, the sun would be a massive sphere over 100 meters wide, placed kilometers away. Light itself, the fastest thing in the universe, takes over 8 minutes to travel from the sun to Earth. 8 minutes. Light from the moon? Just over 1 second. That's how small the Earth-Moon system really is compared to the solar system. And the Apollo 11 landing site? It disappears completely. Now zoom out to include the entire solar system. The planets become small points. The distances between them stretch into darkness. The sun, once overwhelming, becomes just another star among billions. But here comes the moment that hits hardest. Everything you have ever known, every human who has ever lived, every city, every ocean, every story, exists within a region so small that if the solar system were the size of North America, the Earth would be smaller than a pixel, invisible. And on that invisible point, there is a smaller point, the moon. And on that, an even smaller mark, the Apollo 11 landing site. You are not just small, and you are inside something that is small. And that is inside something far larger than you can truly imagine. Now, step even further back. The nearest star beyond our sun is Proxima Centauri, about 4.24 light-years away. A light-year is the distance light travels in 1 year, about 9.46 trillion kilometers. So Proxima Centauri is roughly 40 trillion kilometers away. If the sun were in your city, the nearest star would be on another continent. And between them, almost nothing. Just darkness. The kind of emptiness where even the idea of distance begins to break. And still, we are not at the edge. We are not even close. The Milky Way galaxy contains hundreds of billions of stars, each one potentially with its own planets, its own moons, its own silent surfaces holding untouched histories. The galaxy itself is about 100,000 light-years across. If you could travel at the speed of light, it would take you 100,000 years just to cross it. The entire history of human civilization is about 10,000 years. You would need 10 times that, just to go from one side to the other. Now here's the question that lingers. If the Apollo 11 landing site is still there, unchanged, preserved in silence for 56 years, what else is out there, waiting, untouched for millions or billions of years? Now come back from the galaxy, back from the stars, back to the moon, back to those footprints. They are still there, not as a symbol, not as a story, but as a physical mark in dust that has not moved since 1969. You can imagine standing there. No sound, no air, no movement. The horizon is closer than you expect, and because the moon is small, the sky is black, even in daylight. And above you, hanging silently in space, is Earth, blue, bright, alive. From the moon, Earth does not look vast, it looks fragile. All of human history, every war, every discovery, every life, compressed into a glowing sphere you could cover with your thumb. And beneath your feet, the only sign that humans have ever been here. A few footprints, a machine left behind, a flag slowly losing its color. That's all. It feels almost insignificant. And yet, it isn't. Because those marks represent something extraordinary. Not power, not dominance, but reach. For the first time, a species from one world touched another. Briefly, carefully, and then left. The universe did not react. The moon did not change. The stars did not shift. The universe does not care. But we do. That's the difference. The moon keeps the footprints because it cannot erase them. We remember them because we choose to, and that choice matters, because in a universe this vast, meaning does not come from size. It comes from awareness. You are part of a species that looked up at a distant light in the sky and decided to go there, not because it was easy, not because it was necessary, but because it was possible. And for a few hours, on a silent world, humans stood somewhere no life had ever stood before. Then they came back, and the site remained, unchanged, waiting. One day, humans may return. They may build structures, leave more equipment, disturb the dust again. The site will change, but until then, it stays frozen in time. A moment held still, in a universe where everything else is moving. Stars are born and die, galaxies collide, space itself expands, but those footprints remain, small, quiet, almost invisible, and yet they are proof that even in a universe that does not notice us, we can leave a mark, not a large one, not a permanent one in the grandest sense, but a real one. And maybe that is enough, because when you look at the moon tonight, you are not just seeing a distant object. You are seeing a place where humans once stood, and where their presence still exists. Right now, in the silence, unchanged, waiting.